Westeros.
And welcome to our Morning Throners podcast.
I'm Nelson.
I'm Jeff.
And I'm Kyle.
And we're the fucking Morning Throners.
And welcome back to another episode of your favorite Song of Ice and Fire podcast. We are your Morning Throners, and we got Catelyn 3 on deck. Gentlemen, how are you doing?
I'm fucking mad.
You should be.
I finally got mad. Yeah, like, I don't know,
You should be mad.
I've about had it with both of them. Those damn Starks, man. Like, this is the first time I was reading it, and I was like, I wanted to text you guys and just like, remind me how mad I am.
Kyle's starting to understand where my hatred comes from.
Yeah, exactly. But sometimes, like, by the cool down period between the read and the actually talking about it, like, sometimes I miss some of this stuff. But it wasn't that long today, thankfully. So I'm not as angry, but
yeah. Jeff, give us the one sentence synopsis. What happens in this chapter? Cat 3.
Cat's mistake comes back to haunt Robb in the form of Karstark.
Yes, Karstark murders some squires and gets his head snipped off for it. So yeah, it's all finally shit's actually happening for this, and he calls her out on it. She says it even before that, and just thinks about it the whole time, like, this is actually my fault, which is what you guys are talking about. And it's like, yeah, you fucked up. Like, it wasn't like we talked about it last time. It wasn't actually that big of a deal that Jaime's out wandering around. Like, one more extra man in a battle, you know what I mean? Like, in the grand scheme of things, isn't a huge deal. But this is a huge deal, and this is a direct repercussion for her.
Yeah.
And again, you can't say this is 100% Cat because
I mean, Rob's got some points, right? Like, he decided to do this. He did this on his own. Like, those squires.
I just mean,
like,
I was talking about, like, Rickard acted too. Like, I think he overreacted a bit. Right?
That's what
he
I'm
wasn't
saying.
the only person. Yeah.
That's what Rob
You
said
said
to
Rob.
him. He's like, Rob said to him as he was about to kill him, he's like, this is just as much your, like, you were the one that stabbed him.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, yeah, Rob could have been like, look, all right, fine, he's free. You could have now fought him in the open field honorably and killed Jaime for vengeance. Like, sure, we had him. I wish we still had him too. My whole thing was, like, Cat literally let him go on, like, probably the emptiest promise ever. You know, like
just
a guy
blind
that's
shot.
Yeah,
shot
like,
in the dark.
who cares? Like, even if Jaime, like, really wants to withhold this vow, it's not Jaime's decision.
Well, we talked about this when it happened, right? Like, it was she banked on Tyrion upholding some weird promise that,
and now
he's no longer
Tywin.
in any place to do it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, true. I will say though, I think I said in a recent chapter, like a recent Cat chapter, that basically when Tyrion made that promise, it was like a lump deal. It was like, here's all the captives we want to trade, all the captives you're going to trade. Well, actually, when I went back to look, like when I was putting the notes in, I was looking at Willem Lannister and Tion Frey. In that chapter, he does actually say, like, we'll trade these 2 knights for Willem Lannister and Tion Frey, and we'll trade this other knight. Like, he's kind of calling out specific one for ones.
Yeah.
So he actually is doing
deals.
that. Yeah. So I didn't look it up exactly, but I believe that he probably also said, and we'll trade the 2 girls for Jaime. You know what I mean? So,
well, and why wouldn't he, right? Like,
since the NFL draft is coming up, we have compensation value. Tion Frey is worth a night for the Starks.
I don't know,
but Jaime is worth. I mean, they just say, like, the number 1 overall pick has, like, a minimum draft value, like,
and he can be worth like 3 other people type thing.
Yeah. So. Just...
All right, so before we do jump into this one, there's actually 3 things that I kind of noticed that are, like, I feel like kind of recurring throughout the chapter. One is rain, right? They just mentioned that it's raining like so much.
Dumping and then it's soaking and then,
The other one is, and the other 2 are, I think, like more symbolism-y, is one is Rob's crown, right? Like, she mentions it like 2 or 3
constantly
times
taking
in the
it off
hall.
his head, putting it down.
He takes it off, exactly, and then like he looks at it and like touches it and puts it back on, like when he's about to do something like kingly, like make a hard decision.
Eyes are in shadows. Yeah, like he's like, it's kind of blinding him. I feel like at some points is kind of the idea behind that, right?
And maybe just even like the weight of it too. Like, yeah,
for sure.
He took it out. And
I think it's like a difference, like when he takes it off, he goes from like boy to like her son, and then back to king type thing. And the last one is like weirwood symbolism. Like there's a death in front of the heart tree at the end, but just like there's like a lot of red and white mentioned. Like, oh, there was red on the bodies.
They were
white scale.
Smile. Yeah, so. Just stuff that I like kind of stuck out to me, and I figured I'd mention to you guys because I know at least Kyle pretty much rereads the chapter as we go through. So just figured I'd give you something to look through.
All right, so let's get the setting going. we're sitting in the Great Hall. Kat is next to Rob on the left side. Edmure is on the right side. The captains and the bannermen are around then. And there's 2 dead bodies brought in, laying naked in front of Rob.
Just a point of note is Grey Wind is across the castle. He's somewhere else.
Grey Wind's not there. He's howling his tails off. Do you think it's because of what Kat says, like he smelled death, or
smells it through like rain and wood?
Is it really death, stone, or is it just like kind of a weird like? Do we think it's more of like a not literal thing, like a feeling of Rob type?
I just think like answer. I mean, yeah, it just makes me like the question makes me think about like when do we know about this type of behavior before, and like the only time that like sticks out to me of like the wolves howling like crazy is like when Bran fell and like was like thought maybe dead. Right, and that was making the wolves howl. So I don't know.
If you want, that's where
it was coming
from. The right answer.
Okay.
No, it's the connection to Rob for sure. Rob's in turmoil, right? Like that's the idea behind this. I think is like he's mentally, like he's. And I'm not saying that's the right answer. I'm just giving you a hard time.
I think it's
that
makes
a lot of sense.
I think it's more than smelling death through rain, like
for sure. But I also don't know that Catelyn knows about this kind of weird side of things, right? Like that's true.
Well, she was putting onto it last chapter. She was like, "You need to keep Grey Wind near because he just knows shit like that." Yeah. Like I don't know what
she's not.
She like doesn't understand.
Bran is turning into a wolf when he closes his eyes.
No, her thoughts don't. Yeah, her thoughts don't. She clearly doesn't know exactly what's going on, and her thoughts never even say like, "Oh, there's something like super like magic."
Yeah, it's just they have a connection.
But I agree with Jeff that her actions indicate that it seems like she does think something of the sort.
Well, that's his dog, right, or his wolf, and that's his companion, and he should be close. We're Starks, like that, and I mean, there's definitely some protection there, right? And that she even said that she's like, we've seen what they do when somebody tries to harm a Stark, right?
Yeah.
So all right. So there's these 2 dead boys lying. She quickly thinks of her 2 dead boys, Bran and Rickon.
Super dead boys.
Dead. Yep. And then she just describes that like how they had died. Like the blonde one had died peacefully in his sleep, like no fight, and then the brown-haired one had stab wounds all over his body and like he all on his arms, like he was fighting to try to live.
Yeah, funny thing here, I was wondering like, oh, which one is the brown hair, which one is the blonde hair? So I looked it up on like the Song of Ice and Fire wiki.
Serious, so?
I couldn't figure it out.
Frey's got to be the brown-haired guy.
Probably the opposite way because Nelson's so surprised by it.
Well, on both of the wikis, what it says is the only thing under each of their appearance is they have either brown or blonde hair. So clearly, like, and it says the exact same thing on both. So this is like, I guess, the only line of evidence we ever get about either of their appearance throughout the entire book. Because it's exactly the one line that's on both the wikis.
Too.
So yeah, it's a toss up. But I agree, it's probably Lannister is the. I mean, they both have one Lannister parent, but so both of their parents. One has a mom and the other one has a dad, but both have one Lannister parent, like brother or sister to Tywin, so like same level. Like
so,
Lannister,
Kavan is the one's dad. Who's the other one?
Jenna,
and that's Tywin's
she's
sister.
Married, and she's married to a Frey. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So same amount Lannister, which is why I think it's actually a toss up.
Should I know how many Lannisters are? Like how many brothers and sisters does Tywin have?
You shouldn't know that.
I don't think it matters, but it's like 4.
Okay.
There's one that's not alive.
Of 2 now.
I just meant should I know as in like is it a spoiler to know how many there are?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I mean it's in the back of all the books. Yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah, you could probably go look it up in the appendix.
One other thought. Sorry.
Before you say that, one thing I want to say is like, and I want to get Kyle's opinion on this, is like this is one of those chapters where, and I feel like a lot more chapters start to get like this, and some people don't like it, where you get like 3 pages in and you're like, who is dead? Who killed this person? Mm-hmm. Where like George is like intentionally not telling you information. Right? Yeah. I get it, but like
drawing you in. Nelson just wants all the info right away. Like he has no. That's why you could never write a book, because you would just be like, 2 Lannister boys were dead on the ground. That would have been your first line.
I had to like go forward in the book and find out who the boy. I mean, I knew who the boys were, but like, you know what I mean. Like I want to know all the information so it's organized better in the notes. But yeah, I actually like it when you read it like straight through that George does it like that.
Yeah, I mean, it draws you in suspense.
For sure. It's a storytelling mechanic.
Yeah.
All right, one last thought on the boys as they're laying there dead is she was like, is this how they're going to kill Sansa?
And this is where he talks about the bodies were very pale due to their fair skin, and because they were basically in prison, so they weren't getting any sunlight, so their skin was really white. The blood was shockingly red against the white skin. Again, that just makes me think like Weirwood. And then she thinks about Sansa, like, will Sansa look like this when they lay her out beneath the the Iron Throne?
And that's kind of our first hint that these are Lannisters, right? Like, it's pretty much like these boys have been wronged.
Why would they kill Sansa if it wasn't the Lannister?
Yeah. And I mean, I didn't pick it up here. I'm not gonna pretend I knew who these two kids were before they said their names, but like exactly. It's oh shit, I've opened the floodgates now, right? Like.
Yeah.
Innocent children are dying in prison. Like, this is exactly the situation. Which Sansa, she doesn't say anything about Arya. She doesn't know that still, right?
That's true. She should be thinking that Arya and Sansa are both safe in King's Landing, I think.
She hasn't said a single thing. I don't think she mentions Arya's name at all. She might say girls. She
does think of the girls once, I think, but it is super strange that she only thinks of Sansa laying in front of the throne. That's something I didn't catch, and that's really fucking weird. It almost sounds like a George mistake.
Well, again, this is one of the things that it might be seeping in from the show, but there's one point where she says, like, in Arya, there's been no word of Arya. I think that's definitely a show line, but it might also be in the books where you're right that she doesn't specifically think that Arya's lost, but, like, all of a sudden there's just, like, sometimes news comes from King's Landing and it only says Sansa instead of the girls, and it makes her sus, but I'm not sure.
She hasn't said anything like that in the book.
Okay.
I don't think there's anything leading her into that. Sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
No, it's okay. This correlation would fit pretty good. Like, you could say Sansa probably wouldn't fight and would just like be the peaceful one, and Arya would be like fighting for her life.
That's true,
and she'd be all cut up. Like, I think it could have visually,
they would fit
you could see it. So it's strange that she only thinks of Sansa.
It's funny. Yeah, I mean, you're 100%, and I agree with that analogy, but I took it like the one was killed the one in his sleep, the other one woke up, kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I'm not saying Sansa's just going to lay there and be like, all right, kill me. But
she might. Little bird might.
So like I mentioned, there's people all around filling the Great Hall. There's one person not there.
Yeah, Kat mentions that Robb seemed to spare his new queen. She doesn't want her to have to see this.
Jane.
Jean,
yeah.
But her family's there. Reynold, Westerling, and Rolf Spicer. So her brother, I think one of her brothers, and Mom's brother, uncle. Yeah. Sometimes I just think about the family tree and the right words don't come out. I think about it stepwise. Mom's brother. Yeah. So it's the uncle.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about this kind of the last time, just the Westerlings in general, right? Like,
well, and last chapter, right? We learned
that the
Spicer branch is like
the
bad branch.
The Spicers are the bad branch, is what you're saying?
The low-born branch.
Yeah.
I forget. I remember reading about the Spicers. Like, what do the Spicers care or whatever?
So Jean's mom is Sibel Spicer. Rolf Spicer, who's the one here, is her brother. And in the last chapter, we learned that kind of the reason that Kevin wouldn't marry maybe some of these kids, like, because he said they were trying to set up marriages. It might have been between Jean and like not Tion, the other one, Willem.
Will.
And he said he had to say no because they were too lowborn, because he shouldn't never have married that Spicer. The Spicer's great grandfather sold cloves.
And he brought like a Tyroshi, or not a Tyroshi, but
Magi wife.
Magi.
Exactly, yeah. So he was like, and they say he's Davos level. So that's like the Spicer branch, which again isn't like the bad branch. It's like that's like the lowborn branch.
There was kind of insinuation
and the bad branch.
And you can't expand on this, but there was insinuation that some of them were very loyal to the Lannisters, or they at least would be. So are these them or not? Is kind of where I'm at mentally. So like I said, I don't think you can expand on that. But
yep. So yeah,
it seemed like that was my point earlier. I'm sorry, I just remembered the final my point. This is on the chapter. It seemed like Jane doesn't give a shit about the Spicers or any of that. Like she cares about Robb, but I do, who knows where her family's at, right? And then this is another family that might get ripped apart from this war, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. Well, again, her brother's here too, Reynold Westerling, right?
And the one's a squire, right? And
yeah, her other brother Rollum, I think, is the squire, who's like a little.
And he
kid.
Seems pretty like he wants to be a good squire. At least he did in the last chapter.
Yeah, like he didn't want to leave the hall when Robb was like, "Okay, I'm ready to get out. I want to stay with my mom." He's like, "Not me. I'm your squire." He's like, "I'll be okay." Yeah. So he seemed like a pretty cool kid, like loyal kid, like Jeff said.
Yeah. So my next note is that Tion Frey and Willem Lannister. I don't know if they just come out and say like, "All right, these are the two dead people."
Yeah, it's just like mentioned basically in one of the lines. But
and then,
it's like nighttime and everyone here, like some people here like got dressed in armor. Some people are like in their bedrobes. She mentions like Edmure looks really tired. So it's kind of like the middle of the night. Like they were all
just imagine people in a bunch of striped pajamas with those big old hats.
Scrooge outfits.
Yeah.
One thing I want to say, it's a little weird. These two were just naked in a cold dungeon, like sleeping naked.
Well, they were in a tower. She does mention that Jaime was in a dungeon because he tried to escape, but all the prisoners were initially like treated pretty well, especially if they were highborn. Jaime was only in the dungeon because he had tried to escape.
No sleep pants back in the day. It's just sleep.
I don't know if they were naked, but at least their upper halves were. So
they also might have dressed them for burial or whatever as well. Like this. So essentially, it seemed this is tradition to lay people out before the throne, right? Like highborn folks, at the very least. Is that accurate?
I'm not sure, but she says, I wonder if this would happen to Sansa.
Yeah, it seemed like that she thought it was something that would happen in King's Landing potentially as well. So it seems traditional, at least. So I wonder if maybe
we've seen highborn people die in cities, like Ned's body. At least we never saw Ned's body brought into the throne room.
Well, he was also a treasoner at that point, right? Like,
and who knows? They might not give shit about custom. Rob seems like pretty custom oriented.
But well, exactly. That's the other side of it too. And then, but like,
I've read that like they just brought these kids were dead, and they were like, all right, they brought them as they found them.
Yeah, this is like what do we do with this? More than like a tradition of doing things with highborns. It's like, what do we do with this? Like, you need to figure out what we're gonna do, Rob. We have like these people in chains. Like, here's the evidence. Like, you know what I mean? I think that's more of that. It's just like bringing a problem before the king. Exactly.
Yeah. But at the same time, like, I don't know. It seemed like maybe they were dressed in state, or not dressed in state, undressed in state kind of thing as well. So who knows? Maybe they weren't naked.
Yeah.
Well, it's like an emergency meeting.
All right. Whatever. So he sends Small John to get Daddy, Great John, and he brings in the prisoners. And there's 5 of them. We also learned that 3 had died during the fighting. 2 are dead. 1 is dying. Yep. And then Edmure likes to speak up that during the treason or whatever you want to call it, that 2 of his guards had died as well. So
dope.
Yeah, because Rob's like, it took you 8 people to kill 2 squires, and Edmure's like, well, they also had to get past my guards, which they did
pretty easily, it seems.
I mean, 2 for 3 KD ratios on the Edmure's guard side, and 1's fresh off an injury from Jaime's escape.
Not really.
Not horrible.
Not really.
What do you mean?
Those guys stopped once the job was done.
Edmure's guys are dead. Rob's guys are the ones that have a positive KD ratio.
Edmure had 2 guards down there.
3-0.
But Nelson,
Karstark sent 8 people in and lost 3 and only killed 2. That's a negative KD.
But there were only 2 in there to kill, though.
Edmure's guys are 0 killed, 2 death.
Where do they think the 3 kills came from? Martin and
from
Willem and Tion didn't do that.
No, the Karstarks.
Umber's guys.
Or the Umber's
guys came in and killed
at the end of the day. Gotcha. Okay. I was attributing those to Edmure's guardsmen putting up a fight.
Yeah, I think
they probably didn't put up any fight because they're like, oh, you're our...
What's up, boys?
Yeah. Like, how you doing? Fist pump.
They might have brought down some weasel soup.
Or like, hey, you're not allowed in there. You're not allowed in there.
For the shift change.
Stab. Yeah.
And we find out it's Richard Karstark, and he's not very happy.
And he's like saying it's not murder.
He's not 100% right for killing these kids, but everything he says is like 100% right. He's pretty much just like, Rob, you're a fucking moron.
I don't know about that. So the first thing he says is just wrong, right? Edmure says like they also murdered my men, and he's like, it's not murder. It can't be murder because they stepped in between me and my vengeance. That's just a bullshit line. Like, that's just wrong. You don't kill prisoners.
I would need some
they didn't do anything. Like, that's first of all, that's not vengeance.
Okay. I'm not.
I would need to see some like first men like writing, like make this like old law where like nobody can stand in front of vengeance. Like,
before we get into the Karstark saying his shit, to me this is more like this has nothing to do with vengeance. This is him spitting in Rob's face, saying "fuck you" for not disciplining your mom more for stealing my vengeance.
I think that's part of it. I think his vengeance.
Like, this isn't like a pseudo vengeance. Like, does he feel better about his sons being dead because he killed his 2 little boys?
Some Lannisters are gone. He definitely felt like he poked them.
Well, he does say like blood for blood, so I do think he probably feels a little better.
He's making Kevin
You're right, though.
Lannister feel the same type of hurt as he's feeling. Like, he's getting vengeance in that way too. Like, he's hurting the Lannister.
It's the most he can do from where he's at. How's that?
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're right. I think it's also a poke to Rob. Like, fuck you, buddy. Like, You made me do this.
Yeah, and so how he says it too, he's like, oh, it comes later, like, oh, he's just gonna yell at me a little bit before he forgives me. Like, he might have believed that, like, he was gonna walk away from this.
Sure, because like the evidence he has is Cat, and Cat got a slap on the wrist and let off. Again, there's some of that we know is because Rob like made an oopsie too, so he had to forgive her oopsie because of his oopsie.
Oopsie for oopsie.
Exactly, but now it's
a
like
third
like,
oopsie
clean,
doesn't.
Yeah, this is a clean slate.
Clean.
Exactly.
3 oopsies doesn't make a 4th oopsie.
This is the first time Kat realizes it was her fault, and then Karstark like immediately is like, "Hey, ask your mom. It's her fucking fault." And
yep.
We wouldn't be in this situation.
Yeah, I feel like Rob tried to do a good job of being like, look, these two sons, like, at least your two, like, your two died in the battle in like a field fighting. These two were naked, unarmed. Like,
yeah, there's no honor.
They didn't kill your sons. They weren't the ones that killed your sons. The other thing I'll say is these two boys, we actually did hear, like, again, these are like pretty minor characters, but we did actually hear of them last chapter.
Yeah, because they were talking about Willem, weren't they?
Well, yeah, when they were saying, "Hey Tyrion, you got to marry Sansa," and he's like, "I don't want to." They're like, "Okay, who else could we marry him to?" Yeah. And they say
Willem's in prison,
and Willem has a twin brother Martin, who's also in prison here. And then they also mentioned Tion. They're like, "Hey, one of these 3 people, like they're all connected to Lannisters. We can marry her to any of them." And this is when Tyrion's like, "This is all. They don't actually consider. They're not considering this. This is just a show for me." But yeah, again, they were brought up recently to kind of remind us that these guys were around.
Yeah. So I think it's a good back and forth between Rob and Karstark. Like, Rob's like, these are boys, like, look at them. But like Karstark comes like right back, like, tell your mom it's her fault. And Rob's like, no, it's your treason. And it's just like, it just continues on, like, well, how about your mom's treason? Like, I killed 2 Lannisters, our enemy. She let the biggest one go and got nothing. Like, what are we talking about here?
Exactly. Yeah. If we're talking scoreboard, like Nelson was earlier, like I've taken 2 enemies out, and she gave them one back.
She gave them the biggest
arguably
one back.
The best one back.
Yeah.
Or one of the best ones. I guess the Mountain's probably.
They killed like 2 single A. He killed 2 single A players, and she let the fucking MVP back on the team.
Yeah. We do hear that they reminded that I don't know if we've heard it before, but they were captured originally during the Whispering Wood, which is just way back when.
And that was pretty much, Rob gets into that at some point too. He's like, look, these weren't the 2 that killed, I was there. They weren't the 2 that killed your boys. Like, this was not right. But this gets back into the whole Ned thing. And like, I don't know. I feel like Rob's kind of, he didn't learn.
What do you
anything.
think Ned would have done to Cat? Like, say Ned's the king of the North and he's out fighting in the crag, and she lets him go. Like,
what a fucking question, man!
Yeah, a complete hypothetical deal, but
I think that's probably the best question we've posed on this podcast. Good job, Jeff.
I would say he would send her back to Winterfell and like confine her to quarters, like under Sir Roderick's orders. But they don't own Winterfell, so it's like, what the fuck? Like,
yeah,
what do you
I mean,
do?
a lot of that probably wouldn't have happened with Ned gone. Like, I don't think Winterfell would have. That wouldn't have fallen. If Ned was around.
But I guess I bet you she would just like kind of just leave her where she was. Like, instead of freeing her from Hoster's room, I bet you Ned just would have like, okay, you're still staying in Hoster's room until we have like until we can take you back home. Like, just because I think, just for the fact that he knows flaunting her, like, if you don't do that, other lords are going to be like, what the fuck? How did she just do this and get no repercussions at all?
Which is what is exactly happening.
Exactly. So I would think that Ned would do that. Again, I would even go so far as to say he'd be more honorable and be like, cut an arm off or something, like cut a hand off. I don't think he'd go that far for his own wife though. So
I don't think he'd take parts, but I think
feel like he would have done a lot more to try to get Jaime back. I don't know. I guess it was too far gone. Like,
well, the thing is, if anyone
send your whole troops out.
Ask yourself, like, what would Ned have done if anyone but Cat did that? And they're dead.
Yeah, for sure.
They're just dead.
Exactly what we saw this chapter. Yeah.
It's exactly. So it's like,
let me pose one more thing, and I guess it's not really true. Like, say Jaime was just a prisoner, but they didn't have collateral on the other side. Like, Sansanari wasn't there, so like Jaime was really just like a really +1 chip to the Stark family, and Karstark wanted vengeance. Do you think like there's any old ways of the North ways that Ned would have been like, all right, yeah, take your vengeance? Or at least like give him a 1v1. Like, maybe it wouldn't be.
So you're saying that he would have just used up Jaime to appease Karstark potentially? Is your
maybe like if there was no like Arya and Sansa
so.
were captive on the other side, like all right, like maybe you can't just kill him.
No,
but, like,
I think Ned's way
I'll give
too
you a
honorable.
1v1. I'd give you a 1v1 chance to kill him.
I don't think he would even let him out though. Like it would be a 1v1, but if Jaime won, he's still in prison. And I
do agree with you there. I do agree with you there.
Like, it's weird because like it does. What that question makes it just kind of points out how unreasonable Karstark's being. Again, it's tough to tell because they don't have Jaime. But like if Karstark went to Robb and was like, I demand that you let me kill or at least 1v1 Jaime or I'm leaving. Like that's just that's like. That's just a bad request, and Robb would be like, "No, go fuck yourself." Ned would be like, "No, go fuck yourself." And I think his men would be like, "No, that's ridiculous. Go fuck yourself." It would kind of in this point. I think it's kind of crazy that his men are all behind him here, and like they all fuck off.
Well, I don't know if his men are all behind him, or there's like, oh, there's a better reward if I just go. We figure out kind of what they're doing when they all leave.
Yeah.
But.
So
whatever.
Yeah, let's get back to where we were. So basically,
right,
they're scolding him, and Karstark had one of the outbursts. Is he's like, "How the fuck is it treason to kill your enemies, and not treason to free your enemies?" And in there, he calls Robb boy somewhere.
Yep.
And Great John just punches Karstark in the face because the tooth comes out later, and Robb's like, "Stop, like chill, don't hurt him,
don't kill him right now."
Karstark's like, "Oh yeah, he's gonna give me a scolding before he forgives me. That's how our king deals with treason." Or should I, like he says, the king in the north, or should I call him the king who lost the north? And
then Great John, he comes hard at him right here, right?
Yeah. Great John grabs a spear.
Him with a spear.
Let me split him up. And he's like, no. I want to
see his guts. Let me see what color them guts is, boy.
Great John's the man.
And this is when Blackfish comes in.
Yes.
Soaking wet.
And he's like, we got to talk. Or he just said, all he says is your grace, but it says like by the look on his eyes, like you could tell like there was something up. So Robb's like, okay, I'm going to see him by myself. Go hang the other 7, which include like, again, you're thinking about it.
There's like, already 2 dead.
The dead ones.
Die.
And I think someone even
Umber's says, like, what about the already dead ones?
Yeah, he's like,
or even the already dead ones. He's like, even the already dead ones. Like, we're not burying them. We're not putting them in the river.
This pisses me off. A little thing here pisses me off. Robb says, I won't have them fouling my lord uncle's river. Hoster is still alive.
He is acting Lord, though. Like, they would have given Bran the same courtesy.
Give the guy some respect.
Hoster is his grandfather, right?
Yeah, give my Lord not fouling my Lord grandfather's rivers. Edmure's not Lord yet.
Edmure is the acting Lord right now.
Cat has thought this multiple times. You can't stand behind that too much. Like I have a stance. It's just, I'm thinking the same thing Cat thought. She doesn't think it here, but I was like, come on, give Hoster some love. Doesn't seem like he's got much longer. Give him some respect while he's still with us.
He's basically in a coma.
He's hanging on by.
And he's very close to dying. I mean, they get to at the end here. It's like not long left, is what they say. So we'll see.
I thought this was pretty cool. Not cool. I mean, it's all kind of nasty. But the one asked for mercy because he was just a watcher.
Yep.
I didn't do anything. I just watched them as they did it, and I surrendered.
Well, this kind of gets into Robb's code, right? It's kind of the idea behind that. It's highlighting that he kind of follows his dad's.
Kind of. It's also weird that he's okay to hang the 5 of them and not pass the sentence on those 5. Yeah, me and Nelson kind of talked about this yesterday.
True. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. Like
why does he hang them and not chop all their heads off?
Yeah, at least he should be the one hanging them in some aspect. You know what I mean? Like he should be looking like. Again, he says something here.
Yeah,
like,
you're right.
It's my word,
the
they died by
thing.
My hand.
Yeah.
Except here, they died by like Great John's hand or whoever the fuck
or
took
his
them out. Like,
Great John's men. Yeah, I think it's the execution, though,
highborns?
not the hanging, which is different. I think they're different things.
But like the guy who we saw die, like who Ned beheaded, was just like some lowborn scum, and Ned still gave him the courtesy of.
True. I guess because there was only one of them. I don't know.
I mean, how many people, like, if there was a line of 10, would Ned just line them up and chop, 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 like he was fucking mincing onions before dinner?
Down the line? I don't think so.
I don't think so either. Just one thing, I mean, so the watcher, the guy who just watched, now gets to watch all 6 people hang, and then he gets hung last.
I will say the one thing that Robb does before he commands that, which isn't in the show, is he says, did you know the plan? Like, did you know what they were going to do? You knew everything. And he's like, yeah, but I didn't take any part. And he's like,
right.
Okay, well, you knew.
Do you think if he would have been...
If he'd have been like, no, they just told me you're going to stand here, we're going to go in there, and
Hey,
I think he has a shot.
You come with me. You're my man. You're coming with me.
Exactly. And all Karstark says is guard the door. Maybe he walks away alive. Who knows? I think possible.
I do think that would be possible too. So they get into the back room, and the most grim news is that all of Karstark's men are gone, and they've just kind of slunk away in the night, little by
one
little,
at a time, two at a time, groups at a time, everybody.
And this is Robb, Blackfish, Edmure, and Cat.
Edmure and
the
Cat.
family came.
Yeah.
Also, I think it's kind of cool. Like again, just like kind of the setting. They say that like a servant comes in with a lantern to light the fire, and Robb says no, like we don't have time for that shit, and he just grabs a lantern. So like again, they're kind of like all huddled around,
dark and shadows,
like only Robb's holding. Again, it's like
Edmure's
weird,
about
like,
to sit
dark.
down. He thinks it's like some official like king meeting, and he little does he realize like
asking for like a glass of wine and a lemon cake.
Robb takes off his crown at this point.
And this is when he kind of says like, man, this crown is heavy, right? Like
he's about to go through it too, just kind of like reflecting, but I guess he learned some more things before that. But we find out that the Karstark men have scattered out hunting Jaime. It's not like they're moving as a pack or like a vanguard to wherever. They're out hunting Jaime to try to marry Karstark's eldest daughter.
Yeah, so Karstark has basically told them, okay, we're gonna do. Who knows what he told him?
My
he basically
son.
Said, start sneaking off, and then whoever brings me the head is what he says.
Is my new son? Yeah, immediately.
Yeah, can marry my daughter.
Did he really think that I guess he really thought that he was gonna survive, or like this is just the biggest fake promise ever. Like once he dies, it's like, all right, you killed Jaime. What do you do with Jaime's head? You go back to the next the son that's not there.
I think so. I think somebody would honor that. Honestly, I think that's big enough news right now.
I think if you killed him, it would just become like the biggest fight ever for Jaime's head. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I heard there's a guy on the way back to River with Jaime's head. Like everyone's chasing that guy now. It's just like fumble rumble.
All right, so we figure out that 300 riders have left and twice as many mounts, which seems crazy.
Does it make sense?
Did they saddle each horse twice, or are there 2 horses per man that left?
Well, I mean, the Karstarks.
It's like they're standing. Each man rides with a leg on each horse, just like surfing these horses out, like a horse under each foot,
like roller skates. They wear horses like roller skates. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Near 300 riders and twice as many mounts melted away into the night. It is kind of weird. It's like, are they stealing extra mounts just to be like fuck you, Robb? It's the only thing that makes sense to me. Or they just like for some reason in the north, the Karstarks seem to have more horses.
They're the horse
gods. That's what they do. But again, like if so, I don't think I know that.
Yeah,
or we've heard that. The other cool part of about this quote is it says Robb rubbed his temples where the crown had left its mark in the soft skin above his ears. And I think that just kind of like a heavy is the head that wears the crown. Like it's it's like it's weighing on him.
Yeah,
like he's hearing the bad news. It's weighing on him. And then the next line is he had lost all the mounted strength of Karhold.
What a fucking idiot, right? You can't be doing this shit here. Like, you can't be losing half your, or like this main banner.
What do you do? People. So what do? You're Robb. You come back from the crag. Cats let go, Jaime.
You got to do something. I
think you gotta send out almost like a hunt party. Like you got
to send her to jail.
I think you start. I think you might
send
have
out
to start.
Rickard.
Yeah, might have to start marching south.
That is
true. Like send out the one person
you
that
could
actually
kill him.
Wants to
go
hunt
for
him.
it.
Yeah, go. He's better dead than back home.
Take your 300 men. We're gonna chill here. That's probably the best thing that you could have done.
Leave the extra 300 horses.
Yeah,
leave
like
those.
You could take your 300 men with their horses, but you're not taking 2 of them.
And you must promise that this like absolves everything.
Yeah, we're good after that.
That is actually a really smart. That would have been
smarter
really
than Robb. Look at that.
Just get him out of here. Yeah.
Nelson definitely read that like on a chat forum. I don't believe that he came with that idea.
One of my favorite scenes in any movie ever is Shrek and Donkey. When Donkey's like, what can I, Shrek's hurt, and he's like, what can I do to help? And Fiona's like, I need blue flowers with red thorns. And then Donkey fucks off, and he's looking through a field of flowers, a huge field of blue flowers with red thorns. He's like, blue flowers, red thorns.
Be a lot easier if I wasn't colorblind.
Yeah.
Run into the woods and find me a blue flower with red thorns.
Blue flower, red thorns. Okay, I'm on it. Blue flower, red thorns. Blue flower, red thorns. Don't die, Shrek. And if you see a long tunnel, stay away from the light.
Donkey!
Blue flower, red thorns. Blue flower, red thorns. Blue flower, red thorns. This would be so much easier if I wasn't colorblind. Blue flower, red thorns. Blue flower, red thorns.
Oh!
Hold on, Shrek, I'm coming!
And then Shrek comes through, and Fiona's like, and he's like, what were the flowers for? And Fiona's like, to get rid of Donkey.
What are the flowers for?
for getting rid of Donkey.
So yeah, this is just like, go get Jaime, just like to get rid of him. Like that's more important. Like, yeah, the flowers might help, but yeah, just get rid of him. We don't want him around. He's a pain in the ass.
Yeah. I mean, and he, like you said, like he's better being a roving band of misfits out there, right, than he is killing these dudes and like causing internal conflict. And now Rob's killed a big bannerman. That how the rest of the bannermen going to feel about that? Like this whole situation, I just feel like he probably should have came to a better decision here rather than just immediately King's justice, right? Like.
We'll talk about that in a little bit. So let's hold on. Put him back.
All right. So Kat thinks to herself just that Rob is now surrounded by enemies, except for Lysa in the east, and then Edmure starts speaking up like, "We got to keep this hush hush. Like this can't get back to the Lannisters."
The Freys are already pissed at us. This definitely can't go back to them because the other one again is a Frey.
One's a Frey. Yeah.
Edmund Frey, who's Jenna Lannister's husband, is a son, first son of Walder. So he's not like a. He's a pretty high up in the line of succession, like top.
You said 15. He's first son?
No, he's like a first level son, pretty sure. Like not a grandson. Like he's actual son.
He's an actual son?
Yeah, I think
he's not that old though, right?
I think he's like top 15 in line of succession, which is pretty impressive.
Well, no, if he's a son, that wouldn't put him top 15. Because wouldn't it go down the first son's whole line?
Yeah, but he might be like a third son is what I'm saying. Like he's kind of high up there.
But he's young. I don't believe that, Nelson. He's a young kid.
What?
If anything, he's like the...
Not Tion. Tion's dad.
Oh.
The people that they're kind of trying to not piss off.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to prove that, like, Tion's...
I thought you meant Tion. Like, Tion's
oh, yeah,
like
that's a good point.
75 in line.
Yeah, he's a son of the first wife. That's what I can at least get from my notes.
Well.
So he's one of the first wives' kids, at least. Okay.
Yeah. So I think he's like top 15 line of succession. You're right that, like, the very first son, Severon Frey, who died fighting for Robb, he was like 60, I think. So he did have his own family tree. So there is like a whole family in front of this guy. But my point is he's close to Walder. Yeah. He's like, Tion is 2 away. Tion's a grandson. I could have said Tion's a grandson instead of the last 5 minutes of me talking, but that's what I was getting at.
Yeah. At this point, Robb is too worried. He's more worried about being called a liar and a murderer than just a murderer. He's kind of worried.
Yeah, he's like, these people deserve to know. Like, they're going to find out eventually. They're going to find out that I hid it from them. Like, I can't do that.
Yeah, word's already, and Blackfish brings it up, like, word's already escaped with the Karstark man. Like, it's going to get out.
Yeah, I thought Edmure's being kind of dumb there. Before Blackfish said that, I was thinking that. I was like, yeah, they're already gone.
Yeah, and Edmure's plan was like, no, let's win the war or whatever. And then at the end, it'd be like, oh, no, we can't give you your son back because we killed them however long ago it took.
Well, he's like, we'll just keep it secret until, and Blackfish's like, what? Until we can bring the dead back to life. Like, this problem isn't going anywhere. We can just delay it. It'll be a problem no matter when we reveal it.
Yeah. So Robb knows he must condemn is my next note. I don't know exactly,
he looks at his, I just have that he looks at his crown right before his next thing. And then he says that Rickard defied me and he must be condemned. So again, he's like, looks at the crown, makes a kingly decision. That's it. He has to die.
He's worried about the Karstark men that are with the Bolton group on the other side of the fork.
Yeah, he's like, what about my friend Bolton up there, pretty much?
Yeah, we have another army out there, and now there's a bunch of people who might not be friendly to that army going towards him.
They're going to pull Bolton on the Boltons. Right?
Exactly. And to Jeff's point, I didn't think about this, but Jeff said, what about the Karstark men with the Boltons? I don't know if there's a significant amount of Karstark men with the Boltons.
What do you mean?
The heir is there.
Huh?
The heir to Karstark is
exactly.
there.
So the last son we were about to find out is there. He was captured in the Battle of Green Fork and was being held captive at Harrenhal. And now Roose holds Harrenhal, so he's probably no longer captive. And if Harrion was there in the Battle of Green Fork, my assumption is he was in the command of some small group. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, hey, my one son is going to go with a bunch of Boltons and like these other northern houses. Like I'm guessing he had at least like 100 or 200 Karstarks with him in that battle. Just an assumption.
Company,
But to Jeff's point, like there's 100 Karstarks maybe at Harrenhal right now.
That might. What my point was, like they might hear word that their liege is dead, and now like, do they revolt too?
Overthrow within, or something.
Well, I'm confused because isn't that the point of what Rob's saying here?
That's what I thought. I don't know where Nelson was going with it.
I agree with you guys, but my original thought was that Rob was concerned that the Karstark men leaving Riverrun now would fuck with any Bolton men they saw out there. So he was basically sending a letter, to be like, hey, if you see any Karstarks, beware.
No, I think he was worried.
There's Karstarks there.
that the Karstarks that were with the Boltons were gonna
Would bail.
yeah, or pull some shit on the Boltons, or just cause problems at the very least.
Yep, makes sense. I agree.
Yeah. All right. So they're like, all right, like, what are our... They think about this Harrion kid. Rob's like, fuck, I just made another enemy. And I guess they might have been friends.
So many.
They could have been friends. I don't know. He mentions friend later on, I'm pretty sure.
I think they were pretty close.
Edmure is like, all right, like, let's keep him hostage. Like, we don't have to... If everybody starts turning on us because we kill this guy, like, we're fucked. There's no hope. And
Well, yeah, once you kill him, it's over, right? Like, if he's hostage, at least he's still here. We can fix whatever problems, potentially.
Well, first they do this thing where he's like, Rob's like, yeah, Harrion won't like me if I kill his dad. And Blackfish is like, well, some sons would, because you're basically making him Lord. And Rob's like, yeah, but even if that is the case, he can't
let people know that.
He'd have to look pissed to me. He's like, these are Northmen, uncle, the North remembers, which I just like the North remembers line.
Which I think says something about the Blackfish, right?
How so?
I mean, you wouldn't just come out with, well, maybe he hates his dad if he didn't have, like, some hate for his dad.
I thought that was an interesting point, too. Like,
he doesn't like his brother. We know that.
Yeah, but I think he doesn't like his
brother.
dad either, right? Because didn't his dad try and marry him and stuff all the time? And
I thought Hoster tried to marry him once.
I think
their dad died young, and Hoster kind of became the Lord kind of
who's
young.
Blackfish?
Blackfish
is Hoster's brother.
Oh, okay. That's what I meant. My bad. That's who. I'm wrong on my family tree.
It's not so crazy to think that an oldest son might have had like a shitty dad, like a really tough dad, and he'd be like, I don't know. It's really hard to say.
Sam, maybe, kind of.
I don't know. I feel like Sam would be, if you reverse roles and like Sam died, like the dad would probably be like, all right, good riddance, like Rickon's heir.
Yeah, exactly.
Which
usually
is
the older one, I think, has to like kind of suck up the abuse, right? Like they kind of become the target.
Yeah.
So this got dark.
They get dark.
Yeah, we keep getting off tangent too. But so I think it's funny, just the line when Edmure says like, okay, we can pardon him. It says Rob stared at him in frank disbelief. Like it just like Rob's just like,
that
how
is not a fucking idea.
Wasn't even a thought in his mind. Like, no, he's already dead. Like he's so dead. He broke a rule. He has to die.
Nobody wants to come at Cat and just be like, well, we let Cat off the hook.
Yeah, and Rob, well, he could have, but Edmure's like, I don't like it any more than you. He killed my men, and Cat's like, well, a hostage, and she kind of like backs him up a little bit.
He's like, yeah,
and he jumps on it. Yeah.
Because she feels guilty.
Yeah, probably
100%. She feels guilty, responsible, and is like, well, maybe we should be nice to him. Like, is what he did really that bad? Like, I don't know.
And Edmure was like, look, if we kill him, like we have no hope. Like we lose the Carhards, like this war is over for us. And Rob, this is when Rob goes into his big spiral. Like
you just called him the Carhards. I don't want to miss that.
Well, right before that, I think this is actually important. Edmure has a good point here. Like, and this is because my question is like, at this point, the Karstark's already gone. Like all the men are gone. How much does Rob killing Karstark at this point really affect things? It affects things for what Edmure says here. If they can say to Harrion that if he stays loyal, we won't kill his dad. You can literally use him as a hostage. It is like the only reason.
Yeah, it's like the twin red wines and stuff, right? Like
yeah, like and I get why Rob wouldn't do it, but it is like. And my question is like, would that matter, right? Because you've already lost at least I don't know how many Karstarks are. Like, of the Karstarks that were in Rob's army, how many are here with them at River Run? But you lost 600 horses. That's already gone. You know what I mean? So killing Karstark doesn't affect that number.
Mm-hmm. He's not going to fix the past, yeah.
Could you fix the other ones, the ones that are in Harrenhal or wherever else, by not killing them?
Or the ones that might be hanging around waiting to see what happens to the Liege Lord at River Run.
Yeah.
Or even the 300. You can potentially draw them back or at least win them back when they come back. Like, maybe it's... I think if they come back and this dude's dead, like that's it, right?
I think the 300 are gone. I think it'd be tough to bring that back unless like they were getting fucked up by like
or whatever, or like I think they probably filter back and forth.
I don't know if Rob couldn't like announce like, hey, like if you come back right now, like I'll pardon you for leaving.
Well, I guess if you like, what is Rickard's long-term plan? If he doesn't think he's getting beheaded here, what does he think's happening? Because he's saying bring their head back, like. If anybody does kill Jaime, there's no one to bring a head back to anymore by the end of this chapter.
I don't know if he's thought that far ahead.
But if he probably at least thought that Jaime wasn't going to kill him. Was he going to stay at River Run and be like, hey,
Rob wasn't going to kill him? You said Jamie.
Yeah, Rob wasn't going to kill him. Like, what are you going to do? I guess he could go back north to Carhold, but he has the exact same problem with the Ironborn hold the north. They're not just going to be like, okay, here you go. You know what I mean? Like,
go home. Yeah,
you
can
can't go home
just
either. Like, what's he going to do? So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know his long term plan.
Heat of the moment.
But so Rob starts to spiral. He's like, what hope do we have? No word from Roderick. The Freys haven't even came back to us with our new proposal. And my Aunt Lysa's being a scared little girl up on their mountaintop.
Yep. While we're on that point, Kyle's prediction at the end of the last Cat chapter, Rob said, they say, what does Lord Walder Frey want? And Cat says, not someone, or not what, who.
What. Yeah.
Here, we hear, like Jeff said, they sent some proposal. We haven't heard back. So we haven't heard back from Lysa, right? Because Kyle predicted that their offer to Walder would be Rob and Aaron. So I'm pointing out here that we just kind of got a line that says like that doesn't really make sense unless they're offering Rob and Aaron up without
Kyle's
Lysa's consent.
I mean, I think it was maybe an idea as well, right? Like
I know. I'm not trying to say you were super committed.
I'm not saying it was happening today, but I'm saying like I think this is like the plan that she's trying to put in motion.
Well, hold on. Well, no. I get that you were saying it would happen today, but my point is they sent a proposal to Walder and they haven't talked to Lysa. Those two things like are said in the same breath.
Okay.
But I'm just coming at that like you might want to think about it. Wink. Moving on. Like I'm not putting you on the spot, but like just point it out.
All right, Rob even spirals some more, and he starts naming like his own kind of Arya list, like all the people that have screwed him over. Bloody Richard Karstark, Theon Greyjoy, Walder Frey, Tywin Lannister, and all the rest of them. I just thought that was funny, a little Arya connection.
Oh yeah,
they also Cat and Blackfish there. They're basically like, yeah, you're not going to get any word back from Lysa. Like she's kind of like we talked about this last chapter, and when the Lannisters were talking about how are we going to get Lysa.
Yeah, this is status quo. Like this is what you should expect. Like we knew
she doesn't want any part.
Yeah. I hung out with her for a while. Is what Blackfish is probably saying. Like she's fucking crazy. Like, that gate's staying closed. Like no way is she letting any army in there. Doesn't matter whose it is.
Lysa ain't helping nobody. No way.
But Rob doesn't even. He says like, yeah, her knights would be great, but I don't even need that. I just need to go on her land. Let me through the bloody.
Trying to sneak up around
because there's a big port gold town, and I just want to go there so I can go up north and then flank milk Catelyn. We'll all be good. And they're like, no, it's not going to happen.
Well, this kind of answers a question that I had the other week about like how many knights she has or how many knights is important. And he's pretty much like her knights would turn the tides of this war, he says.
Well, he's in a bad spot. He lost
True.
He's just lost the Freys and all the Karstarks, which are
he's so fucking stupid of his own
the last
doing.
two
like,
chapters.
This is really frustrating. Like I said, this is mad. This is what started making me real mad, right? Like, because this kid is just. And it's not his fault, I guess. Like, he's 16 and got thrust into this position in the middle of the night and was like, everybody's like, yeah, King of the North. And then here I am. And
I actually think this is a good quote. I kind of want to read it. I want to be the quote guy this time.
Do it, Jeff.
The others can take her then.
Rob cursed in a fury of despair.
Bloody Richard Karstark as well, and Theon Greyjoy, Walder Frey, Tywin Lannister, and all the rest of them. Gods be good. Why would any man ever want to be king? When everyone was shouting, King in the North, King in the North, I told myself, swore to myself, that I would be a good king, as honorable as father, strong, just, loyal to my friends, and brave when I faced my enemies. Now I can't even tell one from the other. How did it all get so confused? Lord Rickards fought at my side in 6 battles. His sons died for me in the Whispering Wood. Tion Frey and Willem Lannister were my enemies. Yet now I have to kill my dead friend's father, for their sakes.
He looked at them all.
Will the Lannisters thank me for Lord Rickard's head? Will the Freys?
No, said Brendan Blackfish, blunt as ever.
All the more reason to spare Lord Rickard's life and keep him hostage,
Edmure urged. Rob reached down with both hands, lifted the heavy bronze and iron crown, and set it atop his head, and suddenly he was a king again.
Lord Rickard dies.
Why?
Said Edmure.
You said yourself.
I know what I said, uncle. It does not change what I must do.
The swords in his crown stood stark and black against his brow.
In battle, I might have slain Tion and Willem myself, but this was no battle. They were asleep in their beds, naked and unarmed, in a cell where I put them. Rickard Karstark killed more than a Frey and a Lannister. He killed my honor. I shall deal with him at dawn.
Yep.
Naked and unarmed, for the record. So there we have our answer to the very first argument we had tonight. Is that
I'm sure they had a blanket.
These were naked children.
Yeah, the Starks keep their captives naked in a cold cell. Yeah, it's worse than the where was Tyrion at? The Sky Cells.
Yeah, and the black cells that Ned was in.
I think that is a cool quote, and I also like the like I've been mentioning it before, the crown. Right, Robb looks at it. He makes a statement. He puts it on, and then Cat even says like the sword looks stark against his brow. When just a few seconds earlier, when he was like, "Oh, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do?" It was like, "Oh, it looked weak again." You know what I mean? Like his brow.
It's a little heavy-handed, but I agree. It is a cool and powerful symbol, right? Like, I mean,
yeah,
he's definitely a boy trying to do a king's job, and he's making some mistakes, and unfortunately, it's in wartime, right? Like this is the worst time to be making these fucking mistakes. That's the other thing that's like making me so mad, right? Is like, dude, this is different. Like, you need to figure out like. Karstark alive is worth way more right now than killing him and your honor. Kill him after the war if you really have to.
Is that true? We just talked about that, and I thought we came to at least I was still on the side that these 300 are pretty much gone. Like, I don't want to linger on because we're going long, but
I don't think they're gone. Like, I think if he's like, okay, you can go free.
I mean, you
get
could
your
still
men,
keep the Boltons, Karstark, man.
To the point I was saying about the crown, though, I think it kind of calls back a little bit to the Clash of Kings when Bran in the Bran POVs, he would talk about like how Robb would go from like Robb his brother to Robb the Lord, like when he was in the Great Hall dealing with people verse. It's the same thing that Cat's seeing here. She's not calling it out quite as clearly.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
Robb the son to Robb the king.
Yeah.
All right. So day broke, and they were now out in front of the heart tree.
Everyone came out, even though it's still pouring, not storming, no lightning, but still soaking rain. Yeah.
Yep. There's a headman's there that's ready with an axe.
Long Lou.
Robb big dogs him out of the way.
Yeah,
like I got to do this.
The bodies are hanging, like on the walls, all 8 of them.
Mm-hmm. And
so,
it's pretty cool back and forth between Karstark and Robb. Then
7, yeah.
Because isn't Rick isn't 8. Yeah, he was there, right?
Yeah, because the 5 got brought into the hall, and they said it was 3 not there.
I just wanted, I just wanted to make sure
that
that he was one of the ones that killed these kids, like, and he wasn't just like the mastermind or something. I thought he was part of the 8.
All right, I'm gonna kill you, Rickard. No, you're not. I'm your blood.
Well, he starts off by actually thanking him, because when Robb takes the thing from Long Lu, he says, "This is my work. He dies by my word. He must die by my hand." And Karstark actually thanks him for that much, but he's like, "Remember, I got just as much first blood as you do, boy." I think he also keeps calling him boy the whole time here. Like, he just keeps disrespecting Robb.
Well, he even goes back. Like, he tells him of everything he's done for him, fighting for him.
I was named for your grandfather.
Like, how connected
I'm blood of the first man. Like, I was actually a technically he's a Stark. Like, it's not get that
Cat,
twisted.
Cat thinks about this later on.
Name,
yeah, in a bit.
He's a Stark.
Yep.
He might have a Karstark name. He's a Stark.
Yeah, so Cat thinks this. He was descended from Carlin Stark, a younger son to a King Stark from 1,000 years ago, and had put down a rebel lord and had been granted lands for his valor. So kind of just like if Bran hadn't been paralyzed, killed somebody who revolted, and then got gifted their lands afterwards. And then this guy makes his own keep, and he calls it Carl's Hold, because this guy's name was Carlin Stark. But it soon became Carhold, and over the centuries, the Carhold Starks became the Karstarks. So that doesn't make sense to me. Like, over the centuries, their last name changed. That seems like a more all-at-once thing. Like, one guy's just like, you know what? We're not going to be as connected to the Stark.
Well,
I want to be a lesser Stark.
It's like nicknames.
Like, well, hold on. If you bring up like people in, if you're in a conversation, and you're like, oh yeah, that one Stark, and you're like, oh, well, which Stark? Like, oh no, not that Stark, the Karstark one.
Yeah.
Like, you just keep saying it enough that like, oh, well, that's the Karstark.
But it doesn't change.
And,
like,
and then
never like all of a sudden I have a baby and then I just name it.
It does.
This is how towns get named. This is how. Yeah, this is like just how linguistics work. Like, things just happen, man. It's slowly over time things get adopted into the lexicon.
But it has to be a choice by the family having kids with babies' names, or they're gonna change their name. One of the people just changes their name to what everyone calls them.
History changes. Like, it's maybe somebody's whole family almost gets wiped out, and then the baby's like, oh, you know, like, who do you know? How do you know? Do you know their whole history?
And I don't understand you need to give me an example of how this is possible without a conscious decision of one of the members of the family changing their own last name.
I think it's happening every day, every day.
It does happen every day too, with just like name pronunciation. Like, just think
People
about this: you
travel
have
different
a friend.
places. Yeah.
Let's just say his last name is.
We're getting so off topic. This is a pretty short.
Yeah, this is
chapter.
way worse, Jeff, than anything
No,
Nelson
okay
has
with it.
done lately.
Go with
I'm
it, Jeff.
sorry, go
I like
for it. But
I love off topic.
I'm trying to think of just like a name that you could change really, like Smith, or let's say their name was Smythe, right? And then they just go to school generation after generation, and everyone calls them Smith, 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 until like you just accept that that's your name, and then 5 generations down the road, you're no longer John Smythe, you're John Smith.
That's my point. Is there's a lot of hand wavy when you say 5 generations later. At some point in that 5 generations, somebody in the family made a conscious decision.
I don't think they had
to
have though.
Enough people are calling
just
us
like-
we're just going to
Just
change
it gets lost
officially.
to history.
It just gets lost. Yeah, I think it's just something that.
This is just linguistics, dude.
Hold on. If you say it lost its history, to me that means that Catelyn's story is wrong. They were never actually called Starks, and this history is just wrong. And because it sounds kind of like Stark, what actually became written down in history books is a false history.
And you're not listening to what I've already said this. Like, so those Starks moved up to the Carl's Hold.
Hold on, let's use an actual example. In the Vale, there's the Royces.
Let's just use the
There's
Karstarks.
the Royces, but there's 2 families of the Royces. A greater and lesser family, but they're both named Royce. I think what happened is eventually the lesser, like you guys are saying, it's confusing. The lesser house is eventually going to be like, oh, the lesser Royces. Kind of like the Fossaways, right? There's the red and green Fossaways. They were both just like, well, that's kind of different. They were actually cousins in the same family. That's a bad example. Well, kind of the same example.
Again,
they just change their sigil instead of changing their name. Eventually, they just want to be distinguished, so they're like, you know what? We're actually changing our name officially now. We're the Karstarks.
Maybe it was like we deserve a little more recognition and separation from the Starks. Like we're our own lords, so we'll be Karstarks now. So maybe that's part of it.
This is just what I'm assuming. Like once Carl Stark left and he becomes Carl Holds Stark.
Okay.
Like he died Carl Stark.
Sure.
Like, but as they just like continue to talk about these people, they had to say like, oh no, that's the Carlshold Stark man. Like you could never have just said the Stark man. So like as you just continuously get referred to as the Carlshold Stark man, and then it just gets shortened to the Karstarks, and you're just like, okay, yeah, we're the Karstarks, and then it just becomes their name. Like it just, even if they never had written it down, like those were the Karstarks.
My problem, I agree with what you're saying. My problem is you just hand wave over a certain part. Here you're just like last time
you keep saying the same thing.
Last time you said centuries later they're this, and this time you said, and then they just become, and like that, and then they just become is just a hand wave to, and then somewhere in the middle somebody made a conscious decision to change their own name. I think everyone knows.
It just becomes accepted. They just accept at some point in the line of being called that name. They've accepted it. Yes, you're right. So I don't think it's a one person thing. Like they were like, okay, like yeah, we're like it was just known that they were the Karstarks, whether they had chosen it or not. That's just what everybody had started calling them. So that's what became their name.
I think everyone knows where we stand. Yeah.
I said, talking in circles, not worth it.
Karstark's whole point was like, all right, you're going to become a kinslayer. You're going to be cursed forever, and you're no king of mine. Head chopped.
He pretty much like witch cursed him, right? Like, well, you're fucked now, Rob. Like, goodbye. Like,
yeah. All gods hate a kinslayer.
Stannis.
Not one stroke.
3. That's not good.
But he died in one.
How sharp was this?
He died in one stroke, which I guess is like the important part.
Yeah,
it took 3 to get the head the whole way off.
It's definitely important. But who didn't it take somebody else a bunch? Joffrey?
Theon had to hack at Farland's head.
Yeah. Do better, Rob. I don't know.
I was thinking like how hard that's got to be, right? Like you've probably split wood, right?
But it's a big ass axe, and he was like, "Oh, it was sharper than sharp."
We've only seen 2 successful beheadings.
Valyrian steel.
And they were both with ice.
Both with ice.
Right?
Both
because
with
Ned
ice.
kills Garrett with ice.
He gets killed with
Ned's killed with ice, yeah. So
at least he got killed with his own sword, right?
Yeah, I mean, but that's a sword literally handmade for beheading. Like, I feel like you just drop it. Head pops off.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. At least he got killed by his own sword.
Rob's pissed off. He walks away angry, clenching his fist like the Arnold meme. If you guys know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Rob flung the poleaxe down in disgust and turned wordless to the heart tree. He stood shaking with his hands half clenched and the rain running down his cheeks. God forgive him, Catelyn prayed in silence. He's only a boy, and he had no other choice. So yeah,
he had other choices.
I think it's cool that he does it in front of the heart tree. Like Ned didn't do this, but I think it's kind of cool. Like old gods rule.
All right, Cat goes back to sit with her dad. The Maester's like, "Yo, it's not going to be long. Like he's fighting. He needs to.
He's
stop.
on the edge. Like
yeah,
this is time to give up.
It could be maybe any
Is he talking about Rob? Is what Cat thinks, right? Like
because they have this like thing. He's like, oh, he was always a fighter, and Vyman's like, yeah, but now it's time to yield. He's got to put down his sword. And Cat's like, who's he talking about? Also, before he goes out there, Blackfish got sent out with 100 men trying to capture Karstark deserters and bring them back.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to be
people
friendly,
don't have faith.
though. Yeah.
Yeah. I keep saying Edmure. Blackfish thinks he's might have to hang him. I hope I don't have to hang any of them.
All right, Jane, knock, 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 comes on in, and she...
I am banging the shit out of your son. All day we're doing it. It's pretty much.
At first part, she's worried about his mood. He's
sad. He's moody,
angry, and sad,
withdrawn,
and ignoring her.
Yeah. Jeff's gonna hate me because we're going long, but more symbolisms going into the beginning of this conversation. She puts down her needle because she had been sewing. So again, I think that's just kind of like when you hear needle sewing, I think Arya Sansa. Maybe I'm just too Game of Thrones. I've read this book too many times, but that's what I think of. So it kind of just reminds you like she's like a mom. She's like a good, and then because they're about to get like, oh, I need motherly advice, which at first I think is weird because her mom is here. Like I would get it if Rob like didn't bring,
but she wouldn't talk to Rob's mom.
Yeah, but
right, yeah, exactly.
I need like North advice about Rob, not for. She doesn't need. Her mom's gonna be like, "Yo, are you banging him the right way?"
This is this is a pretty big conversation to be having this soon in their lives, right? Not in their lives, in their relationship together. Cat and Jane.
Well, Cat mentioned something interesting that like they do have something in common that I don't know if it's why Jean comes, but like Cat was in Jean's shoes at one point. Married like a northern guy who was like very different from like the people she was used to in the South. Like would just like get closed off, I guess, is like not normal. I don't know. It's kind of how I think it. They're like more solemn.
So let's talk about like the North custom. She's like, oh man, it was so hard that he had to kill this guy. Like he should have just used the headsman. And it's like, well, that's not how my husband taught him in the North. That they do the old ways.
Killing should always be hard.
The sword
is pretty much.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point. Yeah, like. If to the point of like if Joffrey's just like off with their head, like you become numb to it, so it's just like, all right, fuck that guy, kill him. But like if he had to do it, like if he had to do it, maybe he would be less likely.
Well, he would miss a few times with this crossbow.
Yeah. Well, because what she says here is Tywin is the one who always has someone do it for her because it's easier. So, and to your point, like would Tywin and Joffrey would enjoy it, but would Tywin like be able to go and smash all these guys' kneecaps that he commanded last chapter?
No.
Like, would he be able to do it if he had to do it himself?
He had to do it personally?
That's why you need a good Janna Slint friend around. Allar Deem to do your dirty work for you.
Yeah.
You think they would have smashed your kneecaps?
Allar Deem was the one who killed the baby in the brothel at Jacelyn Slint's command in the first book. The bastard.
Okay, yeah.
So, yeah, that's why you need them.
So he would do that, yeah.
Yeah, he would smash the kneecaps.
She also mentions that Rob was writing a letter, but then burned it. You're like, what the fuck's he writing?
Yeah, I was wondering if that was a surrender letter. The only my thought, because like they're in a really bad situation. Is he actually considering like giving up? But I don't know. It's like it could be one of those things like write a letter and get your feelings out, get them on paper,
and then burn it,
and then like an exercise that he was doing. So maybe it was like something you would never actually do or say or send, but like. Just to get rid of him.
Or like maybe he was gonna like I don't know curse somebody and it's like maybe I shouldn't do this.
Yeah, I kind of want to get away from talking about the show and these things because we're getting far enough away. But there is a part that reminds me of this in the show, and I think it's actually a really great way to get like a thought, like a character's thought that like how do you like that was really good in a book. How do you get that out without dialogue? Theon is conflicted when he gets back to his dad, and his dad's like, "We're gonna attack the North." Theon writes a letter to Rob, and does he do this in the book? It basically saying like, "Hey, my dad's going to attack. Like, here's a warning," and you can like read it over his shoulder. But then he burns it. He decides not to send it and instead help his dad attack the North. Again, I don't think that happens in the books, but
I don't think that.
In the books, Theon thing is just like conflicted in his mind, and he's like, "How am I going to betray Rob?" You know what I mean? That type of thing. So I think that's how they show it.
It's kind
of the same thing that Rob's doing here. It's like, oh fuck no, I changed my mind. That's how I took it.
Cat's basically like, sometimes there's nothing you can do. Like, you just have to wait for him to kind of be ready to take you back. And Ned was the same way. He used to have to go to the heart tree for hours until he was ready for me. And I used to get jealous, but you just find out that that's part of who they are and where their soul lies.
Yeah, Ned had a part of his soul in the heart tree that she would like never be in touch with. But Ned wouldn't be himself without that like weird northiness to him. So she like ended up like growing to like it. She's like, you'll like it too. Mm-hmm. That's the best I can give. Just like leave him be. He'll come to you eventually.
And there's one more thing you can do for my son. He needs an heir.
Smash it out, baby.
She's like, don't worry about that.
Oh, we've been doing it every day, sometimes twice a day. And I got this special
fertility potion.
Fertility drink. I'm ready. We're gonna have twins named Eddard and Brandon.
I think it's cool. Who else thought this? Was it Sansa? When she was thinking about the Willis marriage, she's like, "Oh, we're gonna get married. I might have kids, and I name them Eddard and Brandon,
I think she did name
maybe even Arya." I think is what Sansa thinks, right?
Yeah.
Well, they're not very creative back here, right? Like everybody's named for somebody else.
Immediate generation, just
Brandon,
one generation back.
Brandon the 17th, and Aegon the 25th.
We do that with middle names more nowadays. Middle names just become like a one or two generation back family member.
Yeah, and then she leaves. Basically, that's kind of how it ends.
Yep, they'll pray. I prayed to the mother for babies. Cat's like, I'll help you pray. And Cat's like, damn, that was the actual first conversation I had with Jean. She is actually kind of sweet, like Rob said. She has good heart.
Yeah, and she's got good hits.
And even better, she's got good hits.
Yeah, exactly. It's so weird, man. That was such a weird way to end the fucking chapter. I was like, because like I'm always like the last line. I'm like, oh, now I got to read into this line, right? And then it was that, and I'm like, what?
Tell us about our hips.
Need an air.
They were good, I guess. I don't know.
I'm on tonight and my hips time.
Yeah, she
Kyle, predictions?
Like I said at the beginning or in the middle there was like Kat feels the same way about Jean as kind of I do, I guess, where she seems like she's okay. I don't trust her whole family, but
growing on you a little bit.
It's not even grown on me. It's just like she seems all right so far. She hasn't done anything for me to not trust her or believe that she's a good person.
I think she's young too. I think she's
16?
like not yet, like not 18.
Okay. Yeah, well, so is Rob, right?
Yeah. Rob's like 15, 16. So I'm just saying, it makes sense why she's like timid. She's inexperienced to the world.
Yeah, and they've lived in not Castle Rock, but in the West for how long? And things are going crazy right now, so can't complain or can't blame her, can't fault her. I don't know what's gonna happen here, man. Like I said, I'm really mad about this chapter. I think Rob is kind of losing his grip on everything. I don't know how you come back from this. I don't know what the big swing is going to be. Something's got to happen, right? Like the North can't just be in pieces for the end of this. I feel like the Starks have been getting shit on the entire series, obviously, but I feel like they're a main enough family that they can't just be like shattered and then now they're just like lowborns on the run for the rest of these books. Or the highborns, but you know what I'm saying. Like they have no land, they have no allies.
As Weasel.
Yeah, they all live in fucking what is it, Rat Alley, or where did Arya live?
Flea Bottom.
Flea Bottom. That's what it is. Yeah.
Without going dragging out too much longer, I'll circle back to the prediction. Like they do have one shot, and that's if they can win the phrase back, which it seemed like that's where the last Cat chapter is. Like, oh, we have a chance if we offer someone.
I mean, is Cat gonna marry somebody now that we have Cersei getting married to somebody? Is Cat marrying somebody? Is the next thing, right? Like that's my.
I don't hate that. Okay, cool.
Like, and I wouldn't have thought of that without Cersei getting married, to be honest, because I never even thought, oh my god, she's gonna get married next. So.
Yeah, well, I can't say too much about it, but I like the prediction. So, yeah, we'll see Kyle on the next one for who is next? Jamie. And we'll see the rest of you guys in the spoiler section. Bye, Kyle.
Bye, Kyle.
Later, nerds.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
Bye, Kyle.
Bye, Kyle.
See you on the next one.
See you later.
Now, on to the spoiler section. 4, Arya. Damn.
Not even the right chapter.
Too many beers in the non-spoiler section. Catelyn 3. Where did that come from? Arya's not even next.
Arya's not
for
even
Catelyn
like...
3. Auto spoiler section for Catelyn 3.
All right.
The boy's a little tipsy tips. Go ahead.
The biggest one I have is Tansy T. Mom ain't giving her fertile juice.
Yeah.
I think we talked about this last time, and like, oh, is she pregnant? No way. All right. 2, I think they're.
It's also one of those things that I feel like if we would have gone our normal slow as a snail pace, Kyle might have mentioned something about or like thought about a little bit more. But because we were going long, we were already over an hour before we even got to the Cat Gene conversation. Yeah. We were kind of like, all right, let's roll through this last bit. And we were able to kind of just like hop over it without giving him a time.
I don't know though, because like there's obviously stuff that does help like hormones and gets your hormones where they need to be to.
Sure, but Kyle was saying the last chapter, and I think he said in this chapter the Spicers seem to be like
more of a Lannister side.
But yeah, I agree. I think the Tansy T is one of the biggest ones.
Tansy T.
I wonder if this is actually the same thing as Tansy T, or if this is like some preventative. This is like the pill, and Tansy T is more like Plan B, because she doesn't say Tansy. She does say herbs, milk, and ale, and one of the herbs could be Tansy. So I'm not counting it out, but I think if it was Tansy T, it would have been really interesting if George would have mentioned it here. You know what I mean? That would have really been I think it wouldn't have been too heavy-handed.
Well, I don't think you could have said straight, oh, she's been giving me Tansy, because then Cat would be like, holy shit, my dad's been saying the name Tansy.
But he could have been like, oh, she's been giving me like a, whatever she says, potus of like milk, ale, tansy, and poppy flowers. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I don't think that would have been too heavy-handed. And just replace like 2 flowers, tansy and one other flower with herbs there in that sentence.
Maybe. I don't know. But
again, same thing. I agree. It basically accomplishes the same thing.
Mom is not helping her get a baby. She is preventing a baby.
So while we're on that topic, the last line of the chapter, and we talked about this in the last Cat chapter. Do you remember what I told you about this? The hips. Cat says, oh, she has good hips.
No.
Jamie later talks to Sibel, and he thinks that Jean, who he sees
doesn't have good hips.
She doesn't have good hips.
Right, I do recall this now.
This is something that the majority of the fandom, I'm 90% sure, is like thinks that is tossed up as like this isn't true. Like George has admitted this is a mistake. I don't know if I buy that. I don't know if I've ever seen that interview.
Wouldn't there be
I've seen most George interviews. I've seen a lot of people who I really trust. Like History of Westeros is a great, like, they have so much knowledge on their YouTube channel. This isn't for you. This is more for a shout out to them for the viewers. History of Westeros is a great YouTube channel. They have so much. But like, I'm 90% sure that they, who to me are like almost a truth when it comes to a source and like what actually happened in the books, they say this is like not a factor. Like George has admitted this isn't true. However, I feel like I've seen as many and read all of the George R. R. Martin interviews that are out there about the Song of Ice and Fire, and I've never seen that.
It would be a true interview.
The other thing is, like, to Kyle's point, he has realized that the last line of chapters are important, right? Like he was like, yeah, it makes me think about last line of chapters. Why would this be the last one? He made a comment about that.
Does it really matter?
Why would George make this the last line?
Does it really matter?
Well, what the theory was...
I'm just going to go back and read the last 3 sentences.
Okay.
Who do we have? Tyrion was last.
Tyrion was last.
You will marry Sansa Stark, Tyrion, and soon. Like, okay, like that's important, but that's not like, oh, let me look through the glass and figure something out. Like that's pretty straightforward. All right, who is this? Sam. Sam kicked his left foot against a tree to knock off all the snow. Then the right. I'll try. Grimacing, he took a step. I'll try hard, and then another. And then another.
All throughout the chapter, that's one of those things that's like the Crown or the Weirwood repetition that just repeat, or like in this chapter it's like the rain.
Okay,
how like the rain is repeated over and over.
All right, so what about Sam taking another? Okay, so Sam's pushing on. Like that's nothing. We're not like it's not an important quote. It's not. If anything, it is a summary of the chapter, but it's not an important like.
Okay,
look,
I'll take that. That's fair.
Who is this? Arya. I'll ride peacefully, she said sullenly, for now. Like, okay, I am with you on that one. Like, that would be like, all right. Well, obviously, Arya's not going to ride peacefully. She never was, like...
To your point, George has mentioned this. People are like, how do you, like, choose how you close out your chapters? And he said that a lot of how he chooses to close out his chapters came from before he wrote any of these books, worked in TV show writing for 20 years.
Yeah.
And in TV show writing, it's really important that the end of the episode
You-
makes the person want to come back for the next episode.
Mhm.
Books, that normally is not important in books, because once you've sold the book, who gives a fuck if
Yeah.
they want to? I mean, it's kind of important. You want them to get to the end, but you don't need a hook at the end of
Right.
every chapter.
Sure.
But he thinks that he gets a lot.
I think it definitely helps. I mean, like, even like we go back, like the Tyrion one, like, all right, you're gonna marry Sansa Stark. Like, that is a big thing.
It's just something that, like, kind of pricks your eyebrows up, and it makes you not want to stop reading at that moment. Is, I think, kind of the goal. I'm agreeing with you. Don't roll your eyes at me. I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah, I mean, don't.
I'm saying that
you're saying like Kyle
might
found
not
some
always
like
be
crazy
super
thing out by
important.
looking at the last sentences. Like, I just read the last three. We learned there was nothing in those last three that were like, ooh, what's going on in the future of this book?
Tyrion's very Stark.
It's literally just says that. It's not anything you have to like look through the weeds to find.
We don't gotta hang on.
All right, give me another hot take.
Blackfish says he's leaving with 100 men to go hunt down Karstarks, and he's like, I hope I don't have to hang any.
Kat ends up hanging everybody after the red.
That's
wedding.
That's her job. She just goes out and she hunts down people, not necessarily Karstarks, more so Freys, but like, yeah, she's just hunting down like people who betrayed them, and she's gonna hang them all. And here, Blackfish is kind of saying the opposite. Also, I just feel like there's like kind of like just like Lady Stoneheart vibes. Like, I don't want to foul your lord's rivers with their bodies. Kat's body gets tossed in a river.
Mm-hmm.
They just like Karstark has a red smile when he gets punched. She gets a red smile slit on her throat. I think it said at one point.
By then, it is Edmure's river when Kat's body gets
Yeah.
dumped into it.
That's true. Yeah, because the Hoster's dead. I think he dies in the next Cat chapter.
I mean, I really don't have. Do you believe Rob was Kinslayer cursed? I know Kinslayer becomes a big thing. Who else becomes a Kinslayer?
Tyrion, he kills Tywin.
Is he going to be cursed?
But he becomes a Kinslayer. I don't know if anybody else. Yeah, not that I can think of any other Kinslayer.
Yeah, I guess Tyrion's the big question.
The one that I had was, and I think that you actually noticed it when we were doing the quote in the non-spoiler at the end of that Rob thing. Rickard Karstark killed more than a Frey and a Lannister. He killed my honor. I shall deal with him at dawn.
Dawn.
Again, I don't know if there's any like real connection to Lightbringer here, but we mention it when
Yeah.
Again, it's one of the
When
things
it's
when we
brought up,
mention it
we
when we
talk
think
about
it's
it.
important. So we got to bring it up when we
Yeah.
don't see a connection. Just hey, first off, maybe you see a connection. Let us know in the comments. Give us a like on the video. If you don't see a connection, yeah, we don't either. But we got we're fair here. We give both viewpoints.
I think this Dawn here is almost like Needle. Like when you brought up Needle, like I didn't think too much of Kat having a needle there. Even when you like described it as having Sansa, I don't think it was anything.
Yeah. Well, so, again, I think it's a connection to Ned, right? Like, I'll deal with him at dawn. I'll kill him at dawn. And then you have the John and Rob are kind of similar in the connection to Ned. Again, not trying to draw that out too much. I'm not connecting that to Dawn really here. But I think it's kind of interesting here. Like John beheads Janos. And it's cool because, like, something you said made me think about this. Sansa earlier, I think in book 2, it must be in book 2 because it's after Ned's dead. Maybe the end of book 1. Janos is saying something and she thinks like, I wish some hero, like Littlefinger tells her like it's not all heroes in the stories, and she's like, I wish some hero would cut off Janos's head, and John ends up cutting off Janos's head, and just kind of Rob cuts off Karstark's head, gets off Janos's head. Not 100% parallel, but that's how you get. That's how I get the connection to Dawn. If you're really stretching, that's how you get to John as Lightbringer or Azor Ahai.
Okay.
Last one is the thing that Kyle, we kind of gave him little pointers to, but he didn't mention. Edmure is the person they're offering to the Freys.
Yeah.
And Edmure, I think, actually kind of admits it.
Like,
in this
I'm not
chapter.
marrying any. What does he say? I'm not going to marry. I'm going to have to marry all of the daughters to make this right.
Exactly. After Tion's dead, now that a Frey's dead, now, yeah, even if I married all the daughters, they wouldn't come back to us. So again, that was a very slight hint at what the thing was. So again, I feel like we could have told Kyle, we could have not told him. We'll let him think about it for a little bit longer. So
Yeah.
we'll keep the spoiler section short because the non-spoiler section was so long. So we'll see you guys on the next one.
All right.
For Jamie 3, where he gets his hand snipped off.
Can we just talk one more thing you might not even know?
Sure.
Do we know anything about Harry and Karstark after this?
I don't know.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know.
So we'll figure it out next time.
He's
We
with
have
the
time.
Boltons, so he's with the Boltons, and the Boltons end up betraying them. So you could see how that alliance becomes a thing.
Yeah, they stayed. Maybe he
It's
stays
tough to
with
tell
them.
exactly how that would Well, so
Well,
if Rob, so think
in
about
the
it like
show-
this. Rob sends a letter to Roose. Roose,
Yeah.
that's what just happened. Say Roose opens this letter, says like, "Hey, don't worry. Hey, guess what? All the Karstarks are going to betray you." And Roose is like, "Huh, that's interesting because I've already betrayed you.
Yeah, right.
I've already sent the Glovers and the Tall Hearts to Duskendale to get shit on, and that happened. We heard about that last chapter. So now I could see Roose going to Harry and being like, "Yo, dude,
Hey, Rob killed
guess
your
what
dad.
Rob just did?
Let's do
Killed your
something."
dad. Yeah,
Join
and
me.
I've already betrayed him. You're trying to join me?
Yeah.
I could see that.
I could see that too. And I just know, I mean, from the show, the Karstark is the second in command to Bolton then, right? Like, I'm almost positive.
Well,
Like
the
Battle
Karstarks-
of the Bastards, it might even be Harry and Karstark. It was
Oh, you're saying in the show?
in the show, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you're right in the books that the Karstarks are on the Bolton side too, but it's not Harrion. It's I think
The one that's
one of Rickard's
still
brothers.
there. Or, yeah.
I think there's a Karstark brother.
Well,
Alice
there's got to be
Karstark-
someone at Carhold right now, right?
Well, one of the uncles tries to I think somehow what happens in Dance of Dragons, it's an important point, is Alice Karstark comes to Winterfell. Melisandre says, "I saw a girl riding on a gray horse," and for whatever reason, Jon thinks it's Arya, right? Arya's coming to Castle Black.
Mm-hmm.
Alice Karstark shows up. She says, "One of my uncles is trying to marry me so that he gets the rights to Carhold." So I forget exactly why that's the case, and she marrying her would give him the rights. Like, you'd think that he would just have the rights if all the sons were dead. But the uncles and Alice Karstark are the ones who end up being in charge of the Carhold shit, not Harrion. So he must kick the bucket at some point.
Yeah. All right, let's sign off. See you guys.
Bye-bye.